Today's lesson is called A Smarter Way to Brainstorm. Hi everyone, my name is Jeff.
I'm Roger, and today we're talking some more about a smarter way to brainstorm. We introduced this concept to you last time, the concept of brainstorming. It sounds logical that a bunch of people getting together would produce some creative results. But in our program last time, we kind of talked about the fact that this may not be the case. It might actually be better to brainstorm individually first and then present your ideas to the group. And there are various problems with brainstorming in groups. You've got groupthink is one big problem. And also some people might be kind of shy. Other people dominate the conversation. So not every idea gets mentioned in brainstorming sessions.
There you go. Most often when people think of brainstorming, they think of a group of people sitting in a room trying to come up with new ideas. That's traditional brainstorming. But guys, you can brainstorm alone. You can brainstorm individually as well. In fact, you can brainstorm individually, and that can help group brainstorming as well. Our article recommended that people should brainstorm alone and come up with their own ideas first before getting together in that traditional brainstorming group, before that group gets together and comes up with solutions and novel ideas and stuff like that. Anyways, we've got more for you guys today on brainstorming. Yes, the second part of our lesson on a smarter way to brainstorm is coming up next.
Though we now know the importance of individual brainstorming, when you're left to contemplate on your own, starting from scratch can be tough. If you run into a mental block, how can you overcome it?
It's time now for us to discuss the first part of today's lesson, so let's do that now, shall we? So here it says, though we now know the importance of individual brainstorming, when you're left to contemplate on your own, starting from scratch can be tough. So basically, this is saying that yes, we do know how important it is to brainstorm by yourself, at least at the beginning, but well, when you're told to brainstorm by yourself, it can be difficult. It can be difficult to think about things, or to contemplate things, or to consider things on your own or by yourself. And, of course, as a result, starting from scratch can be tough. Starting from the beginning can be quite difficult.
Yeah, individual brainstorming. I now know that this is a thing. Before, I always thought about brainstorming as being a group activity, but you can brainstorm individually, perhaps, and this has kind of gotten me confused, though. How do you brainstorm individually? What do you do? It's important, but how do we actually do this thing? Well, yes, apparently it's not easy, okay, but we're going to help you guys out with that. So, yes, when you're left to contemplate on your own, when you're brainstorming individually, starting from scratch can be tough. So don't give up. We're going to help you guys out. But yes, individual brainstorming can be a difficult thing. Anyways, to contemplate something, everyone, yes, this word contemplate is a verb. If you contemplate something, okay, you think deeply about that thing. You reflect on it. You might even meditate on that thing. Earlier, Roger told me that before he goes to bed every night, he contemplates the nature of the universe. Yes, Roger. Every night, Roger contemplates the nature of the universe. He thinks about this deeply. Further, here the word scratch is kind of being used in a strange way. If you scratch something, let's say, you might use your fingernails. You might rub your fingernails across that thing so that you stop itching, or so that you remove something from some surface. But that's not the case here, okay? To start from scratch is to do something from the very beginning. You can also make something from scratch. Like my mom used to make pies from scratch, okay? When you make something from scratch, that means you start at the very beginning, and you might also use the most basic and fundamental elements or ingredients or stuff like that. So when my mom is making those pies from scratch, she's not grabbing a frozen pie that she got at the supermarket. She's not taking that out of the freezer and putting it into the oven. No. She's starting with the flour and the water, and she makes the dough, and she makes all the fillings herself, and then she cooks it. That's cooking from scratch or making something from scratch. And yes, if you start from scratch, that means you start at the very, very, very beginning of things.
So again, we do know how important it is to brainstorm on your own, but if you have to contemplate on your own, it can be difficult to start from the beginning, to start from scratch. And if you run into a mental block, how can you overcome it? How can you conquer it? How can you deal with this problem if you run into a mental block? That's when you just can't think of anything. Gee, I've thought of all of my ideas. I can't think of anything else. I'm having a mental block. What am I going to do?
What are you going to do? Yes, you can have a mental block when you can't think of new ideas. Let's say you're also a writer like Mark Twain. You might have a writer's block. In that situation, you can't think of anything else to write for some reason or another. All right, folks, with that, it's time for us to take a break, but don't go away. We'll be right back after this.
One way to get your creative juices flowing is by coming up with bad ideas. Don't be afraid to embrace your silly side. Thinking of bad ideas first can loosen you up and may even lead to a good idea. If you're still stuck, you could also try reverse brainstorming. Rather than asking how to solve a problem, ask yourself what could create that problem. Once you have some potential causes, consider how you would prevent each one to find a solution to your original obstacle. Another method is role-playing or figure storming. Put yourself in someone else's shoes and think about what they would do. Using a different perspective can open up a whole new way of looking at things.
第二部分我们看到的单字是 embrace， 这个字为动词，指欣然接受。例如 Young Americans embrace many trends that begin in Asia. 美国青年接受许多始于亚洲的潮流。另外，这个字也有拥抱的意思，例如 Veronica 拥抱不出机场的丈夫。英文可以说 Veronica embraced her husband when he exited the airport. 再来，我们看到的单字是 potential， 这个字是形容词，表示可能的或潜在的。例如 Helen interviewed several potential new employees. Helen 面谈了好几个可能的新员工。或者The medicine label warned of potential side effect. 这个药品标签警告可能会产生的副作用。接下来我们看到的单字是 perspective. 这个字是名词，表示观点。例如 From my perspective, changing our strategy now would be unwise. 就我的观点来看，现在更改我们的策略是不明智的。另外，我们可以说Put something in perspective, 指更清楚或更正确的说，或以全面的观点来衡量某事。像是 It was hard to put the size of the forest fire into perspective, since you could not see where it ended. 你很难正确的说森林大火的面积有多大，因为你看不到它的终点。
Okay, let's talk about the second part of today's lesson right now. And remember, we're trying to come up with some ideas. We want to do some brainstorming. So one way to get your creative juices flowing is by coming up with bad ideas. Interesting concept there. actually come up with bad ideas instead of good ones. So we've got a phrase here, get your creative juices flowing. Just start thinking about things. Creativity, I suppose, could be considered as kind of an engine or something, and it needs fuel. It needs those juices. So you need to get your creativity flowing or moving like a river to actually start coming up with some ideas. How do you get those ideas moving? How do you get those juices flowing? Well, you can do this by actually thinking of bad ideas.
Yeah, we kind of talked about this creative process on the first part of our lesson, or during the first part of our lesson. We said that creativity is kind of like a chain reaction. You start with one idea, and that leads to another, and another, and another, and then you have a breakthrough. But apparently, when you are trying to get your creative juices flowing while brainstorming individually, you should start to come up with ideas. Bad ideas. That's how you get your creative juices flowing, apparently. You don't start with a finished, beautiful, wonderful idea. You start at the beginning with a bad idea, and these bad ideas apparently lead to good ideas. So, hey, bad ideas, they sound bad, but they might actually be good for you. So, don't be afraid to embrace your silly side. Thinking of bad ideas first can loosen you up and may even lead to a good idea. Now, here we've got a phrase to talk about, to loosen up. To loosen up is to relax. So if you loosen up by coming up with a bad idea that makes you laugh, you're relaxed now so that you can think freely without being self-conscious, so on and so forth. Sometimes coaches on sports teams, they might say, hey, you guys are too tight right now. You're not playing well. You need to loosen up and play freely.
Or I remember in some of my English classes, the students were very reluctant to speak in class. They were shy. They didn't know each other very well. So in order to loosen up the students, I had them get in smaller groups and introduce each other, and therefore they were able to loosen up and start talking more and let those creative juices flow. But in any case here, this is what you want to do. You want to think of bad ideas. Don't worry about looking stupid. Dare to be dumb. Everybody wants to look so smart these days. But hey, there's something good to be said about being stupid, about being silly, because you can actually come up with some interesting ideas if you embrace your silly side. Go ahead and celebrate the fact that you can be silly, that you can be dumb, that you can be illogical or stupid or whatever. It can be a good thing. Now, if you're still stuck, if you still have that mental block, you could also try reverse brainstorming. Reverse here just means going in the opposite direction.
Reverse brainstorming. So, brainstorming, you start with good ideas and you end up with bad ideas. No, that would be reverse brainstorming. Brainstorming, apparently, individual brainstorming, to be clear, it should start with bad ideas based on our article. And these bad ideas should lead to good ideas. So reverse brainstorming means you would do that in reverse, in the opposite direction. Now, this adjective reverse, it comes from the verb reverse, meaning to turn something around or to make that thing go backwards. So here we're going in the opposite direction. Now, if this sounds confusing, you're not alone. Let's learn some more about reverse brainstorming. Rather than asking how to solve a problem, ask yourself what could create that problem. So there's the reverse. Usually people start and they say, all right, let's solve this problem. Let's solve this problem. Well, back up and do things in reverse, okay? Don't think about solving the problem. think about the problem itself. Think about what makes that problem, what creates that problem.
Exactly. So maybe there's a problem with air pollution, and you might think, gee, let's actually cause air pollution. Let's let everybody have dirty cars and burn fires and have factories produce as many products as they want to, and let's not have any regulations at all. What's going to happen then? Of course, everything will be dirty and disgusting, but still, we're imagining this. Maybe by thinking that way, we can actually come up with some possible solutions. So indeed, that's an example of reverse brainstorming. Yeah, create a problem and see how you would solve it later. Now, once you have some potential causes, consider how you would prevent each one to find a solution to your original obstacles. So yes, come up with some possible or potential causes for problems. Think about those causes, and then individually, one by one, try to figure out how you would prevent those problems and how you would find a solution or an answer to that original obstacle. Of course, an obstacle is something that is in your way.
There you go. An obstacle is something that is in your way, which gets in your way, something that makes progress impossible or difficult. Anyways, that's enough for reverse brainstorming. Okay, another method is role-playing or figure storming. So apparently, if you role play while brainstorming, this is called figure storming. How cute. Now, how does it work? Well, put yourself in someone else's shoes and think about what they would do. Now, here we've got this phrase to put yourself in someone else's shoes. We are not being literal here. Do not put yourself in other people's shoes. Don't put those people's shoes on your feet. That would be gross and unhygienic. No, no, no. Here, to put yourself in someone else's shoes is to allow yourself to see something from another person's perspective. Yes, if you put yourself in someone else's shoes, you see something from someone else's eyes. You see something from their point of view.
Exactly. Think of things from their perspective. So using a different perspective can open up a whole new way of looking at things. Of course, your perspective is where you see things. So yes, use these different points of view, these different perspectives, and you might actually come up with some new ideas. Interesting idea. Again, put yourself in someone else's shoes. Let's move on now to the third and final part of today's lesson. We'll listen first.
Next time you face a creative block, remember these tips and tricks. They just might help you get back on track and on the way to your next great brainchild.
Okay, folks, our discussion of brainstorming, our discussion on brainstorming, I should say, is fast coming to a close. In fact, only 2 sentences remain. How about that? Anyways, next time you face a creative block, everyone, remember these tips and tricks. So if you can't think of new ideas, if you have a creative block, think back onto this article or think about this article once again, and you'll have some approaches, some new methods that you can try out and to see if you can't come up with some new and creative and novel ideas.
Indeed, and they just might help you get back on track and on the way to your next great brainchild. So yes, get back on track. Start thinking the way you were supposed to be thinking. You're no longer distracted. You're no longer daydreaming. You're back on track. And you can come up with a new great idea, a great brainchild. That means a new novel idea. Okay, that brings us to the end of our discussion for today. Let's hear from our Chinese teacher one more time.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文一开始提到 Though we now know the importance of individual brainstorming, when you're left to contemplate on your own, starting from scratch can be tough. 虽然我们现在知道个别脑力激荡的重要性，但当只剩下你自己在思量的时候呢，要从无到有，可能还是很困难的。好，句子里面的 from scratch 表示从零开始。我们知道 scratch 是刮痕啊、抓痕，不过同学们可以试着想象，以前人们他们没有跑道嘛，可能只能拿一根棍子在地上画出一条线，画出一道痕迹来当起跑线。那我们就可以联想 scratch 它有起跑线的意思。那从起跑线开始，那就意味着从零开始，所以 from scratch 这个片语就是用来表达从最一开始来做某事，尤其是在没有其他协助啊，或者是放弃现有资源的情况下开始。举例来说 She used frozen dumpling wrappers rather than making them from scratch. 她是用冷冻水饺皮，而不是从零开始自己做。好，另外 scratch 当动词，它有抓或是瘙痒的瘙，或者是用爪子去爬的意思。那这边帮同学们补充2个跟这个动词 scratch 有关的用语。Scratch the surface 字面上的意思是抓表面，那它是用来比喻事情做的并不周详，没有去深入处理或是深入了解，那这就类似中文说的做表面功夫，或者是只懂皮毛而已。好，那还有一个很有趣的谚语是 You scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. 字面上的意思是你帮我抓背，我也会帮你抓背。那引申的意思就是彼此互相帮忙，互助互惠。好，接着读到课文第2部分的倒数第2句 Put yourself in someone else's shoes and think about what they would do. 设想自己处在别人的情境，并想想他们会怎么做。好，in one's shoes字面上的意思是穿某人的鞋子，那么 shoes 可以用来比喻某人的立场或是情形，所以 be in one's shoes 就表示站在某人的立场。那我们课文里面是用 put oneself in somebody's shoes， 字面上的意思是把自己放在某人的鞋子里，那引申的意思就是设想自己在某人的处境当中，从某人的角度或是立场去思考。好，再顺便补充几个相关用语。Step into somebody's shoes 踩进某人的鞋子，那这个片语是用来表达接替某人的工作，那意思就跟 fill somebody's shoes 差不多。例如 It will be hard to find someone to fill his shoes. 要找人接替他的工作是会很困难的。那还有一句话叫做 If the shoe fits, wear it. 字面上的意思是如果鞋子合脚，那你就穿吧。那其实是要表达说如果你觉得是在讲你的话，那你就承认吧。这有点类似我们中文说的对号入座。好，以上是今天重点整理，接着回顾今天的单字吧。
Contemplate. As Eva enjoyed her breakfast in the park, she contemplated how to spend the rest of her morning. Embrace. Many people are afraid to embrace change at first, even when it will improve their lives. Reverse. Pay close attention to the directions because following the steps in the reverse order will ruin the experiment. Potential. The surgery has many potential risks, but it may also save the patient's life. Obstacle. Financial issues can be a major obstacle to starting a new business.
Discussion Starter starts now!
Everyone, now it's time for our discussion starter. Roger, are you ready?
Yep.
Do you find it easier to brainstorm by yourself or in a group?
Well, I think group brainstorming has the advantage of getting a bunch of people together to come up with ideas. And I'm not very creative myself, so if I hear other ideas, then I can get my creative juices flowing. How about you?
Well, I'm new to it, but you know what? I now prefer brainstorming by myself because, yes, brainstorming by myself allows me to avoid groupthink. Sometimes when I get into a group and we're brainstorming, we all end up thinking the same thing and nothing really gets done. We don't come up with new ideas. So for that reason, I now prefer brainstorming by myself. Okay, everyone. With that, today's article is now complete. But as always, we sure hope that you guys have enjoyed reading along with us. Anyways, I'm Jeff.
I am Roger.
See you next time.